and he needed music to think, and he thought in thought experiments, not just pen to paper. And I loved it. You know, science became beautiful and this kind of flow and this fluid thing for them rather than card-hold facts. You know,
science became magic. Speaking of the theory of relativity, how important is time and place to you as an actress in this particular film? You filmed this in Prague. You went back in time. Costumes took you back too. And when the filming was done, was it tough to leave behind, or is she still with you? Is Einstein still living inside of you? And let me end it with this: is time, as Einstein said, just an ugly illusion?
Oh wow, big questions there. Time in the Czech Republic was always really, really, really special, and it will continue to be because I think it was one of the best times of my life. It's very sad leaving Mileva because as I say, I really did fall in love with her, and she became incredibly special to me. I think she's still with me though, because I think I take less crap now because of her. I'm very aware of being taken as an equal and having to jump through hoops, and I'm aware of. I think I'm stronger as a result of her.
Enjoy
if anything.
Enjoy the ride, kiddo. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much. Thanks for talking to me.
I've been speaking with actress Samantha Colley, starring as the first wife of Albert Einstein in the You Don't Want to Miss National Geographic Channel 10-part production of Genius. For more information about the show and Samantha and other members of the stellar cast, visit channel.nationalgeographic.com/genius. If you missed earlier episodes, you can, for a time, watch them there. You are listening to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. My guests today are actress Samantha Colley, starring in the National Geographic Channel's new series based on the life of Albert Einstein, Genius, and Tim Bauerschmidt and Rami Little, authors of Driving Miss Norma. Tune in to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show at hallicasserjayne.com. We'll be back in a minute. Stay with us.
A message from the American Podcast Council.
You and I know why podcasting is so wonderful, but in a recent survey, 45% of Americans indicated they're unaware of the term podcasting. Think about it. 45%. People just like you, living unaware. It's as if the term podcasting was just a word, like Folgenblurble, or mocking turf, or schleen. People in your community need help. All this month, we want you to find a friend, a relative, a curious stranger. Show them how to try podcasts. Then share your story on something called Twitter with the hashtag Tripod. That's TRYPod. Together we can delete podcast unawareness. Won't you help? That's TRYPod.
A year-long 13,000-mile adventure, a 90-year-old cancer patient, an aging hippie son and daughter-in-law, a very large standard poodle named Ringo, and a mobile home, and that's just the beginning of a remarkable story chronicled in a remarkable book, Driving Miss Norma. One family's journey saying yes to living, by Tim Bauerschmidt and Rami Little. Here's the background to the story. Before she became known as the adventurous 90-year-old road tripper and international sensation, Miss Norma, with over 500,000 devoted Facebook followers, Norma Jean Bauerschmidt lived a quiet, modest life in rural northern Michigan, never crossing a state line, let alone a zip line. But following the death of her husband of 67 years, and after being diagnosed with terminal uterine cancer only 2 days later, Miss Norma broke with her way of life, and instead of confining herself to a hospital bed for what could be her last day, Norma rose to her full height of 5 feet and told the doctor, "I'm 90 years old and I'm hitting the road." And thus this once timid woman said yes to living in the face of death, connected on a deeper level than ever before with her son and daughter-in-law, discovered for the first time how to fully embrace life, and unwittingly inspired thousands along the way. For the first time, she tried regional foods, mounted up for a horseback ride, and even reached for the clouds in a hot air balloon ride. With each passing mile, and by the way, one educational visit to a cannabis dispensary, Miss Norma's health improved, and conversations that had once been taboo began to unfold between mother and children. Driving Miss Norma showing us all that it is never too late to begin an adventure, to inspire hope, or to become a trailblazer. Let's talk. So, okay, you two, let's start with you, all right? I want to hear about your story. Rami, you tell us first. What's the story with the two of you? You've been running around the United States like little nomads for a long time. That's where life was when all of this started. Talk to me about that life.
Yes, we've been living in a 19-foot travel trailer for several years now, on and off. In 2011, we went full-time and have been living with our big poodle Ringo, crisscrossing the United States and spending some time in the Baja Peninsula, kind of footloose and fancy-free.
Just even this part of the story I love. I have friends who just are in the midst of doing the same thing. What work? No work, just play, huh? That's the theory here. I love it. Talk to me.
Isn't that what life is supposed to be like?
I always thought so, but I never live it. God bless, God bless. So, Tim, listen, let's talk about your mom, Miss Norma Jean Bauer-Schmidt. Tell us who she was as you knew her before the time of your dad's passing. Just how did you know your mom? Who did you think she was?
I had a very much like an Ozzie and Harriet upbringing. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. My dad was the primary breadwinner. They had their traditional roles. You know, they both grew up in the Great Depression. They went through World War II, and everybody had their roles. I mean, I had a wonderful childhood. I wouldn't have changed anything about that. I had a very stable, steady, no highs, no lows. But my mom was never a very outgoing person. She was always kind of in the shadow of my dad's stronger personality, and yeah, it wasn't until this trip that I really realized that there was a whole nother person underneath the skin.
Which is so much a part of the story, because I think we all come to discover as we get older that our parents aren't necessarily who we thought they were. And I think that, you know, so this story that we're going to tell now in the next half hour is as much your story, I think, and yours, Rami's, as it is Miss Norma's story. And let's just look at it from that point of view. So she was how old when your dad passed, and they'd been married how long? Talk to me about that, because let's get a little history here.
My dad was 88 when he died, and my mom was 90. We visited them every year. Part of our travels every summer, we'd come up to northern Michigan where they lived, where they retired for the last 30 years, and we'd do a check-in, just make sure everything was all right, help them out around the house, and just feel good enough about leaving for another year and coming back. We always resisted or were reticent to have, you know, a serious discussion about, you know, the inevitability of one of them dying, both of them dying, or unable to take care of the house and where they would want to go. We avoided all those conversations until that summer of 2015 when, on our annual visit, we rolled into a crisis at home and my dad was dying.
So your father dies, and this is remarkable. And just days later, she's diagnosed with uterine cancer. I mean, what?
Yes, actually, it was. The process is happening simultaneously as Leo was dying on the second floor of the hospital. Norma asked me in the middle of the day if I could take her downstairs, that she had an appointment, and that was the first that we had heard that she had any medical issues at that point, other than, you know, the things that we've known for a long time, her arthritis and things like that. So I took her downstairs, and as the days progressed, Leo's health declined, and we got a diagnosis 2 days after he died that Norma had uterine cancer.
Devastating, I'm sure. Hard to swallow, considering everything that else had been going on. So how did it get from that to making a choice, which was, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to go through that chemo crap.
We had my mom, my younger sister, she died at age 44. She had a year-long struggle with tongue cancer. We were witness to that. My mom just watched my dad die in a hospital medical situation. She was the last person in her family. All her peers are gone. She really had nothing to look forward to beyond this. So when we presented her with the options, there really were no options. We could leave her behind in the nursing home, which we saw was she wouldn't have been able to live there. I couldn't have left her there. Or as many people would want to do, is have her come with us. And although we didn't have a house, a brick and mortar house, we had our house on wheels, she didn't hesitate to say, yeah, I'd like to come along. The treatment decision was very easy for her. She did not want any medical treatment, and it was hard sometimes for us to honor that, because when you see her kind of frail or weak, or maybe we should see a doctor, but she was like, no, I'm okay. And in the end, she was okay without all this medical intervention. She did not die of cancer.
Oh, really? Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just went through the same thing, by the way. I guess that's why the story really grabbed me, because I've just been through it. And it's tough.
Wow.
And yet it's not tough. And we're going to talk about that. It's miraculous in one sense. And I want to bring that in. But just the fact that she chose not to receive treatment, that right there must have surprised you, I would think.
No.
No?
No.
Okay, good.
No.
Talk to me.
It didn't. No. And I was so supportive of it. I don't know why we as a Western society are so stuck on longevity at any cost. We've got to live long, and whether or not it's really living, whether or not you're hooked up to an oxygen machine or you're pumped up with drugs and really aren't functioning, but you're so-called living. You're still breathing and collecting your Social Security check. I was not surprised that she refused treatment, and I totally supported her on it. I didn't want her to. I knew she wouldn't survive. My mom would not have survived the initial surgery, let alone chemo and radiation. Please. You're
a very forward-thinking family. When I was reading the book, I was like thinking, but in the beginning, you know, you presented a different picture of her as being kind of a quiet, you know, nice church-going kind of lady. She had spunk. You have spunk. That's clear, both of you. I mean, you got it from something, right? I mean, you know, you talked about your dad being the more vociferous of the two, but I have a feeling she had quiet spunk, and that comes out as the story goes along. So listen, so your dad passes, here she is, she's facing this, she makes her decision. Do you have expectations of how far you'd be able to go with this thing, with the diagnosis? And did the doctor say to you, well, you got a year, you got 5 months, you got 10, what?
We didn't get that far with the doctor.
Oh, really? Okay.
When we were in the office and he presented the option, she just looked at him and said, you know, I'm 90 years old, I'm hitting the road. And he had a big question mark on his face, like, what is this woman talking about? And looked to us to kind of describe our lifestyle. And it didn't take him long to say, you know, if I were in her situation, I would do the exact same thing. But to answer your question about how long, you know, he didn't have the opportunity to say that. They would have had to do more follow-up to even see how far along the cancer had progressed. But we were watching Norma in her grief, losing Leo after 67 years of marriage, and on top of that, getting this diagnosis. She became more and more frail as the planning went on, and we were concerned that we wouldn't get her out of the driveway. So we really rushed to get things together enough to be able to hit the road with her. And those first days, we watched very closely to see how she was doing. And it didn't take long for her to kind of leave everything else behind psychologically and just really embrace the present moment. And that's when the joy of our trip really began.
I love that term, embrace the present moment. You know, I said, and I'll say it during this interview, I just went through this with my mom, and the same thing. She made the same choice that your mother-in-law made. You know, that's it. But it was I was really angry. I had to deal with my own letting go of it and saying, no, you could do this, you could do that. No. And it was interesting to me that the doctor was so on her side on that decision, because of course they deal with death all the time. This was, you know, not something most of us get to deal with until, you know, we deal with it when it comes. Did you discuss death itself with her? Either you can pick that up. Tim?
Discuss death with her?
Yeah.
We didn't know. That's an interesting thing. She kept a little diary, and we read after she died, and there's no mention of sickness, cancer, death, none of it. She didn't fear death.
Fascinating. Yeah.
I'll tell you, I kind of thought about death only in the fact that my mom, I knew she was going to die in our motorhome. I mean, you can't get any more intimate than that. And my mom went to bed at 9 o'clock at night safely and up at 9 in the morning. And each morning we would wake up and we would, you know, there was a question mark. Is Mom going to be alive? And it was like maybe 9:04. Okay, I'd get a little concerned and I'd peek through the door just to check, you know, because truly in the beginning I thought it could be any day now. But as we went on the trip and as her health improved after we got her off of a lot of her pharmaceutical drugs she was taking and got her good food and just pumped her up with love, the biggest drug of all, I didn't see an end. I didn't see her dying. I saw her living.
I love that. So off you go. You and Tim and Mom and Ringo the dog. I mean,
Yep.
biggest damn dog, by the way.